Cool. Hey, so a lot of people have been messaging me and dropping comments, wanting some more like in-depth details or tutorials on how I get my handheld shots. So I'm gonna go ahead and break this up into two parts. First part being like for beginners. I don't know if you've watched other videos about shooting handheld, but for me, I always obviously have both hands on the camera, usually one hand, on the grip of the camera next to the record button and the shutter. Another hand on the lens, doing manual focus and zoom in and zoom out. I do everything manually. I very rarely do use autofocus. The only time in my videos you'll really see me using autofocus is in like a real estate video. If I'm like opening the door with this hand and walking in the door with that hand, or walking in the door, using both hands. Or if I'm walking through a walkway, I'll use autofocus. But other than that, pretty much always manual focus. So as a beginner, when you first got your camera, you're gonna be nervous. If you're trying to jump into client work, you can be nervous. A lot of times you get the camera and you're kind of shaky. But a couple ways to get around that, just at the basics, is to lean up against something. Now you have support, an extra level of support. You're able to hold your camera using both hands, tuck your elbows in, tuck your arms in. You can also rest it on your body. A lot of times that's what I'll do if I need more stabilization, is I'll rest on my body. Now I have 1, 2, 3, and 4 points of contact right here. I can get some nice shots just like that. I'll show you. Just like the ones I'm getting now. I'll show you a few more examples. Handheld shots. Go ahead and cut that. So another part of that, not just how you're holding the camera or leaning up against something, is where you're holding the camera. So if you're having it out further from your body, you kind of have to control a little bit more. I don't know what happened here. Okay, there we go. So okay, that's pretty much part one. So I just want to keep it short and sweet. Part one is put as many points of contact on your camera as possible and on you. You have this extra support. I can do things from like close-ups, panning shots, panning down, a little tilt shot, panning over. All of these I can do really steady by leaning up against something. Now if I don't have anything there, a lot of times you guys see like my in and out shots. This is kind of a little bit more advanced, but when you're moving around with the camera handheld, you want to take those core values of keeping it in tight, keeping the position in a place where you can maneuver it smoothly. If you can't do that yet, then you need to go back to leaning on something. Or sometimes I can get a little bit more stability by bending my knees. If I kneel down, I have support here, I have support on my elbows. I can get a low shot, a little shaky shot, or I can get a little tilt up, which I often do. But at the end of the day, man, it's really just practice. I've spent hundreds of hours out here doing it. There's no way that you're gonna get as good as somebody who's shooting for hours every day if you're not shooting for hours every day. Doesn't matter how much you study, doesn't matter how naturally talented you are, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're only shooting for 5 hours a week, you're never going to be as good as someone who's shooting for 5 hours a day. So just keep that in mind. We all have obligations, we all have family, we all have work and things like that. But that just means that if you want to be better than the next guy, you got to sacrifice some sleep, sacrifice some Netflix. Whatever it is that you are able to do, you got to use that to your advantage and get out there and get better. I highly recommend that if you if you don't know which settings you're supposed to use in any given scenario, you don't know how to complete a project from the way you see it and push it through to be the way you want it to be, I encourage you not to start charging clients yet. Go out and shoot, do stuff for fun that doesn't have pressure on it, so you can get your skill where it needs to be, so you can really offer value, and you don't have to like feel like you're overextending yourself for too little money, as well as not delivering on your value. So just take that all in with a grain of salt. You do you. I definitely was out there charging and working and hustling as soon as possible, but I did it. I've done a lot of work that's just for me, and I make every project is still for me. I put my all into every single project. If somebody values you, somebody values me enough to invest their time and their money and pay me to do their project, I'm going to be just as gun-ho and just as excited and just as creative with that project versus another one, regardless of how much I like the project, right? I got to put my all into everything and get better every day. So get out there and shoot every single day. Try new things, try new angles, try new framing, study the game, watch film, and just keep practicing. At the end of the day, like I said, somebody's gonna be out there working harder than you. You gotta work harder than that person if you wanna be better than that person. Go get it.